Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 264th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are rocking and rolling with about 40 people and getting ready to go. We have a tremendous agenda today. We'll start with Mimi Gurman talking to us about rape and its legitimization. Great to have you, Mimi. Then we're going to go in with John Brakey, Ken Bennett, Ray Lutz, and some others to talk about the um, um, election protection, which is paramount in this year of the midterms. Also want to talk about Orban. Orban apparently is going to become a verb now. Lots of people are working to Orban Trump, and we'll see how that works out. In the second hour, we have a really deep dive into nuclear power. We're joined by Linda Gunter, who has a new book, and Arnie Gunderson, the great engineer, and Roger Rappaport from Western Michigan. We're going to talk about the disaster at the Palisades nuclear plant, which some people insanely think they can reopen. And now the engineer at Palisades Framatome has said, well, maybe not. And when you get that from the engineer, then you got trouble. So that's going to be in the second hour. Although we are joined here, I believe, by Carl Grossman. Carl, are you on with us?
He is co-hosted.
Yes, Carl Grossman.
Let's unmute.
Okay, so before we get to Mimi, I see MYLA Reson. MYLA, thank you. And MYLA, if you'll make an announcement also about the Solartopia Earth Day show as we get going, that'd be great too. Carl Grossman, you have something that you're posting for Earth Day with your great Enviro video series. Do you want to mention that real quick?
Yeah, let's see it. My video is on, I think.
Yes, you're
It
good.
was. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, it's actually 3 programs that'll be on Free Press
.org, Free Press.
.org, and it's they're all on the new push, the new nuclear power push intensified is the title. And my guests are Kevin Camps, Arnie Gunderson, and
You.
well, no,
Okay.
I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the name of.
That's all right. We'll put the link in the chat, Carl.
Will do, and it'll be aired this coming Saturday. The program
Okay.
on and so I'll put a link in the chat right away.
Thank you so much, Carl. Great to have you with us. And in the second hour, as I said, we're going to talk to some of those people about the, as you say, the coming push for nuclear power. MYLA Reson, you're the producer of what was known as California Solartopia. We're moving it just to California, just to Solartopia, and you're putting up on the Pacifica Affiliates Network the show we did last week and turned into a 1 hour Earth Day special. Can you tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, so it's now available on AudioPort for all of the over 250 or is it 250 affiliate stations or 200 over, and it's also available to all of the Pacifica sister stations, the 5 sisters. So it's a great show. It comes out of what we did last week with Carl and Kevin Camps and the great Greg Pallas and Susan Shapiro. Excuse me, Susan Shapiro and who am I missing, Harvey?
You, MYLA Reson was part of it as well.
Anyway, it was really good, and it's going to be available to be. It is available now, but it's especially available to be picked up for Earth Day.
Thank you so much, MYLA. And if you'll put the link, whatever you can, in the chat, that also would be great. So thank you, Carl and MYLA. As I say, in the second hour, we're going to go deep dive into nuclear with Arnie Gunderson, Linda Gunter's new book. and more, and Roger Rappaport from Michigan on Palisades. So that's at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. Now we got Mimi Gurman with us, our poet laureate. Mimi has come across a horrific piece on rape that we're going to talk about. And then we've got John Brakey has joined us. Ray Lutz is with us, Ken Bennett, and we're going to dive in to election protection in Arizona, California, and elsewhere. But Mimi, come on for maybe 10 minutes or so and tell us what's going on with this thing you came across about rape.
So I don't know how many women who are with us today have seen this, but I wanted to talk to you specifically today. And it is a CNN report that came out a couple days ago. And it's about a rape academy. It is a place where over in 1 month, in February, in 1 month, there were 62 million visits to this rape academy. And the month after, in March, there were 80 million men who visited this particular website. And what this is I'm going back and forth between my notes and the screen. So here, I'm back to you guys. What this is a place where men come to a site to learn how to procure drugs to drug their wives. Or dates, just women in general. And I'm really happy that more women are coming into the show today because I really want to hear from them. So 62 million, and this is a number that people can't grasp. Your first response, and the response that even my partner made, was it's not possible that it was 62 million men visiting one site in 1 month and 80 million in the next month. But this is true. So there were a couple of authors of this report from CNN. It's fact-based, and the link has been put up a couple times by Mike Hirsch. Thank you, Mike. And what I want to do is talk with the women right now during my time. And I'm not sure, like I said, if you are all aware of this, but what your feelings are around the fact that 62 to 80 million men, and that's just 2 months worth, are coming into a website to learn how to rape their sleeping wives, how to pull their eyelids up on video to show other men that their wife is sleeping, and then watching her get raped by her husband and or his friends, which is what happened in France. And that case went through, and all of the men, I think there were 70, who raped, I can't remember her last name, I'll find it. Every single man who participated in the rape of this woman in France has been arrested. So anyway, here we are. We have feared men in some capacity for our entire lives. Every woman here knows that. Without a doubt. I'm not even going to ask if it's true because I already know it's true. And to the men listening, I really want you to understand that, especially with this report, on top of the Epstein report, we fear you. We don't trust you. Maybe some women trust you, at least somewhat, but most women do not trust you at all. At all. So if any of the women who are on this show feel like just raising their hand and speaking up to what I've just been talking about from the CNN Rape Academy, and again, like Mike said, the focus is on this right now, nothing else for this time frame. So are there any women who would like to discuss this, how you feel knowing this? And if not, I'll keep going.
We have two hands.
Oh, good.
Dr. Ruth Strauss, who's a medical doctor, and LYNN FEINERMAN, who's a radio talk host, and HEDY TRIPP, who's a lifelong activist. Go ahead, Ruth, please, and then Lynn, and then HEDY.
First of all, I want to say, thank you. I just quickly good searched it, and And Snopes says there's a mixture, so it may not be 62 million men, but obviously there's, they said a mixture, so some of the story is obviously true. To the men in this group, I don't fear you at all. And so
Ruth, you're muted, and so are you, Harvey.
my
And
audio is on, so there's something on your
All right,
end.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go.
Okay.
Go.
Oh, anyway, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I just said that Snopes said the story had mixed, so obviously there's some truth in it. The 62 million may not be, but whatever. I'm glad you brought it up. Now, the second thing is, to the men in this group, I do not fear you at all. I put myself in situations where I was afraid, but I kind of got myself into that situation. Well, not really. If you're riding up in an elevator with somebody, you didn't get yourself into a situation. But the reason I raised my hand so quickly is Matt Lauer. There is a woman named Brooke Neville who has just come out with an article about her atrocious rape by Matt Lauer. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because she wrote a riveting article. It's in The Cut, which is part of New York Magazine. And it has a paywall. So I subscribed, for a week, copied the thing, and then unsubscribed.
Penny, we're talking about this. Can you keep it to what we're talking about?
Yes, I am, because what do you mean? It's a rape.
Okay.
So I guess that's what we're talking about. Anyway, the thing that I wanted women to read is how this woman talks about recontacting her abuser, who was Matt Lauer, and the psychology behind the whole thing. And I think it's an important article for women to read. And that's my point.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Dr. Ruth, we appreciate it.
So what I have to say to that, and I would like to respond to women discussing this, because that's what a discussion is. So my feeling is that one of the first responses that I've noticed some women having is to defend men. That's the first response. It happens right away. The very first thing isn't, oh my God, this is so horrific. It's, hey, to the men in this group, I don't fear you. You are loved. Because why? Women have to protect men. That is what we've done since the beginning of time. We have birthed you and we have protected you, even though we get assaulted. I can't even remember the amount per second of women in the United States with assaults, so sexually assaulted. So it's interesting to me that that was the very first response. And I understand it. I totally understand the maternal, as opposed to the patriarchal cause of the maternal reaction, is I cannot be in a room with men and not say to those men, you are loved. And that to me is what the patriarchy has done to us. And that's my response.
Okay, thank you for that. LYNN FEINERMAN. Lynn?
Yeah, thank you, Mimi, for bringing this to our attention and bringing it front and center. It is, I just heard a report about the statistics of women and children who have been murdered horribly in the Gaza genocide and in the wars in Iran and all over the Middle East, the massive rapes that are happening in Sudan as methods of war, the rage and fury that it makes me feel is inexpressible, period. And the truth is that y'all don't pay attention to it, males. You just don't. And we, again and again and again, we hear about this, and then you go on and you ho, 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 and talk about all your accomplishments, et cetera, and glorify yourselves. when in fact, the vast majority of you ought to be in prison for the way you treat women and children. That's the way I really feel when I hear something about
Can't
this.
believe that statement.
I want you to believe it because
Well,
that's the way I
It-
feel.
the 5 men I know on this broadcast.
Ken,
are
we're
gonna
not
do
with
that.
having
all
you
due
defend-
respect,
We're not having
Ken,
you
with all
defend
due
yourselves.
respect, we,
Nope.
we will have time for you to speak. That's
Ken,
not this
well,
time.
And I deeply resent that somebody would just bomb in and do crosstalk on me. This is my space. Thank you so much again, Mimi.
thank you, Lynn.
I'm glad you're here, Lynn.
Mimi, do you want to speak? And then Myla?
I don't need to
Hedy,
say anything to that.
and then Jennifer, and then we go to Ken Bennett and the election issue. Okay, thank you. Who is next here? Was it Myla?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, Myla, then
Yeah,
Hedy.
I just wanted to say I didn't see the CNN report, but I did see a lot of reporting on the CNN report, and I've watched a lot of discussion, and I think the news, and I don't know if all of the numbers are right, but even if 10 men were visiting a site and learning how not only to drug their wives and then invite other men to watch them raping their drugged wives. Apparently, it's pretty widespread, and I don't think that the numbers are horrific, and I don't know whether the numbers that you cited, Mimi, are not necessarily the correct numbers, but I don't think that that's the point. I mean, they're vast numbers. We know that they're very large numbers of men who are providing porn to other men and raping their wives or their significant others, and it's horrendous. I want to just say that in terms of Ruth, I think that I don't know that she was necessarily responding to the news about this website, but rather to your statement, Mimi, that we should trust, that no man can be trusted. I think that's what she was responding to. And I know that I was a bit taken aback myself by that statement from you. I don't feel that way. I feel that there are many men that I know that I do trust. And I certainly trust Harvey. And
Thank you.
I guess,
and
Myla, the scale, this might help you understand why I could say that. So my scale, and I wanted to talk about this, my scale, we can call it a, good man scale. Like, are there any?
believe there are.
On one end of the scale is who watches porn, and who, but even before that end of the scale, before that is, how do you know that the men on the Zoom, okay, including Sunny, how do you know that when a woman walks by them on the street, let's say it doesn't even matter attractive or unattractive, but to that man has some sexual thought and turns to watch that woman? Okay, you don't know that none of these men do that. I'm just saying, for me, that is at one end of the scale. The other, which is part of the patriarchy, Myla, you know that. It's men having sexual thought all the time about women. That's one end of my scale. My other end of the scale is rape in any capacity. So where are you, meaning any man, on this? Are you on the scale? If you're not on the scale, awesome. But this report doesn't beg the discussion about are you or are you not on the scale. The report is about, and the authors of the report have not recanted on those numbers. And those numbers came from the report itself, which is posted on the links, Myla, directly from the CNN report, which you really should read. I haven't even gotten through it yet because it's nauseating. But so, Myla, that's how I say that,
Okay, so
because
listen,
men haven't done their part to stop the patriarchy.
Okay, we have time commitments we made. Mimi, this is really interesting. Myla, this is interesting. What we will do at a future GREEP is do it at the end, so we have an open-ended thing, okay? Because we have previously promised to talk about election protection. We have Ken and John and so on. Okay, Mimi?
Oh, it's fine. I just mostly wanted to just let people know that the CNN report existed and to
Right.
touch base with some of the women here because this is, there's a lot of women here.
Yes, there are, and we appreciate that. So we're almost at time certain here. Hetty had her hand up right from the start. Jennifer, if you will join us at a future group, we will have this at an endpoint where we can have an open-ended discussion, okay? Hetty, go ahead, please. Hetty Tripp in Minnesota.
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. Rape is historical, it's global. So if you're looking at global, the numbers are clearly, it's probably low. It's a systemic crime. There are women who rape, there are trans people who rape, but there is an overwhelming number of women who are raped by men. So you have that data there. I taught Asian American studies, and I worked with students on sexual assault on colleges. That's a serious crime. And I also looked at human sex trafficking. So that all is connected in terms of global crime. Human sex trafficking of women is even higher than the trafficking of arms and weapons. So it's a serious problem that it's being used with the STAR Act. If that goes through, it's women that are going to be affected. Yep. So historically, why are women being targeted? Why are we such a threat to men? I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mimi, if you'll wrap, and then we will at a future group do this at the end so we can have an open-ended discussion. But Mimi, thank you for raising this. Go ahead, wrap up, and then we can go to John Brakey, Ken Bennett, and so on.
Hetty, I appreciated what you said. And yes, bringing this up this stands alone to me. It's not something where we have to talk about how, yes, maybe some women rape, maybe some gay men rape, maybe some trans people rape. That's not the point. The point is that there are men by the millions who are interested in finding out how to drug their partners and rape them on video and share those videos with other men whom they do not know on chat sites that all go through this one or two different websites that are all listed in the CNN. I just wish people would take some time and actually click on the link that Mike Hirsch has posted numerous times that is the CNN link. And if you have questions about the numbers, don't ask Snopes, ask the writers. They're there. And they have not recanted on the numbers. And they've certainly been asked because it's something that comes up right away. So anyway, thanks for listening. And I hope I hope all the men who are in this room right now take some time to reflect on men they know, their own behaviors of people they know, of conversations they hear that they haven't stood up for us in, and all of that to try to do better. Because y'all need to do better.
Okay. Yes, we do. Absolutely. We will have revisit this 2-3 weeks at the end so we can have an open-ended discussion. Thank you very much for bringing this up, Mimi, and all those who commented. We appreciate it. And we will put a notice up, and Mimi, you'll come back, please. Lynn and Myla and Dr. Ruth and all else, Hetty, who've commented. Okay, we're going to move ahead now, please, to election protection. We're honored to have John Brakey, who is now a defendant for the crime of filing a public records request. We have Ken Bennett, who's the former Secretary of State and state senator in Arizona. John Brakey is also in Arizona, as you can see from the cacti in the background there, and Ray Lutz, who's a tremendous expert on election protection. And we have others with us as well. John Brakey, let's start with you. Then we'll go to Ken, please. And then Ray Lutz. John, you have a line you gave me, we were talking earlier in the week, that I will never forget, and it needs to be memorialized. It says that you walked into the courtroom as a plaintiff and you emerged as a defendant. As someone who's married to a lawyer, that one really resonates. And Ken, I noticed you're wearing an orange shirt. I hope you're not talking to us from a prison. So, no, thank goodness. Okay. So Ken, if you will start, and then we'll go to Ken. John, if you'll start, then we'll go to Ken Bennett.
Well,
Ken, do you have time for us? You good here? Okay, good. Thank you very much. John,
it's a good line because that's what happened. And, it gets really more bizarre is that, in court, you don't bushwhack people, okay?
Well, apparently you do. I mean, apparently
they bushwhacked me, and I walk into the court as the plaintiff, and all of a sudden I find them a defendant. I get served with a motion to dismiss, and they accuse me of having a corporation and forcing Pima County to buy Abe, which is free, and I don't have a corporation. Okay, and it was just one of the most bizarrest hearings I was ever in. And you don't go into court and somebody gives you a motion and expect you to reply to it on the spot. It was an 8-page motion, okay, and they gave me 10 minutes to read it, and I just kept saying, hey, I'm not prepared for this, and this stuff is not true, and so I am going to file a motion for reconsideration and explain how bizarre this thing it really was what they did. Because
your case involves
verify an election. That's all I was interested in. I never accused them of fraud. I said that they didn't do ARS 16602 and that they did not do the canvass properly. They were supposed to do it. And so I'm suing them for procedures. And all of a sudden they turn it on me and I'm the defendant.
And what you're doing here is trying to protect elections.
Yes.
So that is now apparently a crime in the American court system. Ken Bennett, do you want to comment on John Brakey's experience here and what the state of election protection might be in Arizona?
Yes, thank you, Harvey. For the benefit of the other listeners on the call, Pima County, which is the county where Tucson, the second largest city in Arizona, is located, just had a bond election for over $2 billion of bonds to be sold for transportation projects in and around Tucson for the next, 10 or 20 years?
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. And John's first experience in kind of scrutinizing elections goes back 20 years ago to when there was a regional transportation authority, RTA authority in Tucson there that had an election 20 years ago. And John was very concerned about some things he saw 20 years ago. So he and others, and I've kind of joined recently, have been kind of scrutinizing elections. Well, as the election unfolded in Pima, John and I were watching publicly published reports on the website of the county recorder in Pima County that controls voter registration and mail-in balloting, and the county election department that counts the ballots. And to Pima County's credit, they had a report that says the one department transfers so many ballots over to the other department for counting. And the other department publishes a report that says we received so many ballots and we counted so many ballots. Well, after about a week of counting, I think, John mainly noticed that the department receiving and counting the ballots said that they had received and counted about 199,000 ballots. The department that had sent the ballots to that department said that they had sent about 198,500. So there was a minor discrepancy of about 500 ballots. 500 fewer ballots had been sent than the ballots that were claimed to have been received and counted. So he and I, we sent a very respectful email just asking the county about this 500 ballot discrepancy. And some other things that we noticed, very minor things. As John said, we weren't alleging fraud. We weren't saying that anybody had done anything wrong. We just kind of wanted to bring to their attention that there was a 500 ballot discrepancy between how many had been sent, how many had been received and counted. About a week later, when they were finishing up the whole reconciliation, all of a sudden, a new batch of 500 ballots showed up on the reports as being sent from A to B.
3 weeks before they forged the documents.
And so we contacted county supervisors in Pima County, a couple of which I know personally, and we told them about these little minor discrepancies, and we offered for free to provide a program that our organization, Audit Elections USA, has come up with. We've developed it's basically a Microsoft Excel program with some macros in it that you take the file of ballot images and you take the file of what's called the cast vote record and you blend them together, and you can go back and forth and see that on any particular ballot, the votes were recorded in the spreadsheet. We offered it for free, and we hoped that the county would kind of slow down, and before they certified the election, they would maybe ask about this 500 ballot discrepancy. And lo and behold, at the meeting to certify the election, which was scheduled almost 10 days before the date that they were required by state law to certify the election. So it kind of felt like they were rushing a bit, but not one person got up and explained anything about the election. The issue came up on the agenda. One supervisor made a motion to approve the certification. Everybody else voted unanimously, and they literally didn't spend 1 minute discussing any of the, how many ballots did we send out? How many ballots came back? How many ballots did we transfer over to them for counting? What about this 500 ballot? Anyway, John we were just kind of surprised that they felt like they were rushing through. So John personally, our organization did not, but John personally felt it important enough to file a pro se action, just asking a judge to order Pima County to consider using this program that we have to verify that the election was done correctly. We didn't challenge the results. We didn't allege any fraud. But as John mentioned, in the hearing before the judge, he's surprised with the motion to dismiss, and then these almost counter motions acting as though he's the now defendant for having even questioned the election. So it's a microcosm of what's going on around our country. John and I ended up in the microscope of election scrutinization 5 years ago when I was asked by the Arizona State Senate to be the liaison on that audit that they did of the Maricopa County presidential election results here in Arizona. As you may recall, in the 2020 election, when Biden beat Trump, the closest state in the country between those two candidates was Arizona. Biden won Arizona by a little over 10,000 votes out of 3.4 million votes cast. If Arizona had been 1,000 people, 80% voted, 800. And here's how close the race was. Biden got 397 and Trump got 395. 2 votes difference between the winner and the loser out of 800. And you'll note that 397 and 395 doesn't add up to 800 because in the actual election, there were 8 ballots. There were 1% of the ballots, 8 out of 800, or 34,000 ballots out of 3.4 million ballots cast in Arizona in 2020, where the voter didn't express a vote for either one, Biden or Trump. And that includes, I mean, there was a libertarian, and I mean, they didn't vote for the Democrat, they didn't vote for the Republican, they didn't vote for the Libertarian, they didn't vote for any presidential candidate on 1% of the ballots. So if you had a race of 800 ballots and somebody won by 2 votes, and there were 8 ballots that the system didn't record any vote for the top race on the ballot, you would at least want to look at the ballots and make sure that everything was counted correctly. And so that's all John and Ray Lutz and Ken Bennett and many others around the Lynn Bernstein and I mean, so many around in North Carolina. There's so many of us that are simply trying to help American citizens verify that elections were done correctly. I have taken arrows after arrow after arrow from people in my party because I've had the audacity to stand up and say, I'm sorry, Biden won Arizona. It was by a hair. It was by a smidgen. But when I was called in front of Congress to testify after I was the liaison to the Maricopa audit, I shared some findings that John and I found where the county probably didn't conduct the election perfectly. No election is done perfectly because humans conduct elections and humans aren't perfect. But after sharing the minor errors that I did find, that John and I did find in the election, when asked the fundamental question by Republicans and Democrats on the Congressional Oversight Committee, did Biden win Maricopa County? I said yes. And boy, did the Republicans turn on me as though I had, violated some code that Republicans can't say that a Republican lost an election.
In fact, they spent $500,000 forcing him out of the Senate.
It's
And
just
they brought in
unbelievable.
yeah, it's an incredible story. But
And-
one thing I want to add, if I could,
Yeah, please.
why am I so vigilant on Pima County? Oh, I spent 8.5 years on a court case and they even admitted that they were indiscretions that they did a long time ago, 8.5 years later. And then 1.5 years after that, they had another bond election. And I went down there and I filmed it. And then I caught them breaking and entering into the system after they sealed it. Because me and another Republican, Jack Harper, we got cameras in all the election departments through the state. And so I hooked up after that and I watched it. They're breaking and entering in. Then I go down there the next day, that night, and confront them. And then I have all the media there the next day. And then they lie. And they said, oh, we had to go back in because we got the zero report. And I said, excuse me, but I have the zero report because I caught it on film.
Well,
You
this is just
make it. Listen, the
this is-
database is very easily manipulated. It's the CATS vote record database. We built a program to analyze it. They probably have a program to switch votes. Very easy.
And let's say we are a nonpartisan call here, and I have to say that in the 21st century, this was all pioneered by Al Gore, because Al Gore was presiding over the U.S. Congress to certify, as notoriously we saw in 2020, he was in the role of Mike Pence, and the Black Caucus in 2000 or 2001, after the 2000 election, asked to have a session which is constitutionally provided for, to examine the balloting that came in from Florida. This was the Black Caucus. And Al Gore, who was the vice president of the United States in the Mike Pence role, refused to allow the Black Caucus to have the time to examine the votes coming in from Florida 2000, which denied Al Gore the presidency and put George Bush in the White House. We saw the same thing happen again from the Democrats in Ohio 2004, We saw it in 2010 in the midterm elections that gave the Republicans control of the state legislatures. We saw it in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania in 2016, where Hillary Clinton refused to facilitate a court-ordered recount in Michigan. And I will recall for you the classic moment in 2024 when 7 swing states went by the same margin, miraculously, to Donald Trump. And Kamala Harris, the loser in the election, got up, immediately conceded, and proceeded to allow the Democrats to trash anybody that questioned the outcome of the 24 election. So here you are, John Brakey. I want to go to Ray Lutz in a minute. I can't help but ask, when you entered the courtroom as a plaintiff and exited as a defendant, what did they charge you with?
Well, they are telling me that the judge ruled to dismiss the case, and then he asked for sanctions, and then the judge said, yes, you go ahead and put this, I'm just going to sanction Mr. Brakey, okay? But then he reversed himself and said, but first you have to submit, and then he gets a chance to go ahead and rebuttal. And I already got the rebuttal ready. This guy
Did they sanction you for money? Did they levy fines on you?
Not yet, but they're planning on it supposedly, which is just an absolute joke. Really, it's a slap. It's another, is where they stifle people from asking questions and they intimidate.
A slap is what does that stand for?
Strategic something for participation that they're stifling you from. It's a long one.
And they've been hitting Greenpeace. They've been hitting Greenpeace. I'll put on my Greenpeace hat here. They've been hitting Greenpeace with this garbage for decades. Whenever we go in and sue a polluter, they hit us with a slap suit. Strategic lawsuit.
There it is right there.
Against public
Strategic lawsuit
participation.
against public participation.
And that's what you get in America in 2026 for daring to question the outcome of an election. For God's sakes.
It's not the first time. I've been slapped 3 times now in different 2 states, okay? Santa Cruz County, they sued me for asking for public records. And I won the case 3 times. They spent probably $150,000 to date, okay? And they owe my attorney $71,000. And it's crazy.
It's just unbelievable. The electoral system is so much up in the air. It's not just Trump. I mean, the Democrats have been just as guilty of this as the Republicans. It's been phenomenal. When we showed 100 different ways that the election in Ohio 2004 was messed with, and then that election put George Bush at second term, we were attacked by John Kerry's people. Never heard a word from the Republicans. They couldn't have cared less, but the Democrats attacked us. It's unbelievable. Ray Lutz, what crime have you been charged with lately?
Well, I think I might have an idea for John and Ken on this, and it's something that just came to us a while back. Well, okay, so in California, we have a similar situation where in Riverside, there was a community group there that got all of the chain of custody documents. So I'm talking about the little pieces of paper that say so many ballots came in from the mail, and a person signs it at the bottom and they say that's the delivery. How many did I get from the drop box? They have a form, 2 people sign it. They have the form from the voting centers. Each one of there's 54 of them. There's about 10 signatures at the bottom. Says all the numbers. How many did they get? 600 from this, 500 from that. They got all these forms together. Many, I think 7 boxes. They spent all this time putting all those numbers into a spreadsheet. They had compiled them all down, and somehow the election system is missing or has an additional 45,000 ballots. That's not a trivial number. This is like a whole pallet of missing paper that they don't have. And of course, in California, and it's unfortunately the lawsuit that I was involved in and won at first, but then they decided to turn around the law and say that I lost. Then they charged me another $10,000 for their time. So the thing here is that the ballots are sealed, okay, and they have them. So we got this big win where we say we want it on paper so that we can verify the results. And unfortunately, you can't get to the paper to ever look at it. You can't even count the paper because in California, you're not allowed to open a ballot, whatever that kind of means. Like, how do you open a ballot? I mean, they must mean open a ballot box or something if it's sealed. So and in California, it's only 6 months for this last election, which was Prop 50 to do the redistricting. They only saved them for 6 months, not the 22 months for federal election. This is only 6 months of retention, but it's sealed so you can't look at them. And so when the community group came up to the registrar of voters, which is what they call them here in California, the election official, they said, no, everything is fine. We like our numbers, and they must have made mistakes. But how do you make 45,000 mistakes all in the same direction? It's almost impossible to even think of that.
Well, they did it. They did it in Ohio 2004. We have no doubt about that. So,
well,
it is doable.
So what this could be is either what I call ghost ballots, ballots that are dreamed up by the election system that don't actually exist, right? They're just ghosts. And that could be it. Or the people's numbers are off, or maybe they're missing some forms. Maybe but if there's not another pallet worth of paper, then there's a problem there. And they don't want to address it because think about it. The election official is wrong no matter how they do it. If they say the community numbers are right and the election system is wrong, then they got a big problem. The election system is untrusted. But what if they say we counted it up and the election system is right? Now all their chain of custody documents are wrong. Now they're wrong that way. So it's their paperwork to do the chain of custody documents. It's their paperwork, no matter how you look at it, but it doesn't add up. Now, how do we get around that? Because the sheriff, who is running for office, it turns out this has, of course, been politicized. So you have the governor's race, and Sheriff Bianco of Riverside said, we're going to seize the 12 pallets of ballots, and we're going to count them ourselves.
Yeah, well, everybody's got to hear this from California. There's a sheriff running for governor. There's 2 Republicans running for governor. This sheriff who's running for governor has confiscated how many ballots, Ray?
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
12 pallets. But I mean, he was trying to keep them from being destroyed.
Said 12 pallets?
12 pallets of materials. And so then he had his investigator, who I've talked to. The sheriff's investigator opened up 22 of the boxes and counted them. They averaged 571 ballots, which turns out, if you extrapolate that over the 1,086 containers, it's a little bit more than what the community group said, but it's way less than what the voting system says. But you don't know, it's sort of in the middle. Okay, so here's the problem. We can't get to the ballots to count them. So that's gone up to the Supreme Court now. They've said the sheriff cannot do anything. His investigation is stopped, and we want it all. And the Democrats say, oh, this is just Trump trying to make a big scene, and Bianco's trying to take credit for it, and blah, blah, blah. And, but realistically, I mean, I just want to get to the facts. I'm not saying that the one way or the other. I think they have a good point here. But so how do we do this? How do we get to the facts without opening up the seals? And I've got the answer. And this can be done in Arizona too. What you do is you use scales. You use counting scales. They're very, very accurate. You take the box empty. You set it on the scale. You press the tare button, T-A-R-E. You see that on the back of all of the containers, trucks that go by. That's the empty container weight. And then it remembers that. You take 100 ballots and you put them on and you say, here's 100 ballots. And then you take a sealed container, same kind of box, and you put it on the scale, and it'll tell you how many ballots are in it, assuming a few things. It's only ballots in there, not a pair of extra sneakers or something. But you shouldn't end up with fewer ballots than you expect. Like if there was other junk in there, it would make it would inflate the number of ballots that you have. You shouldn't end up with 45,000 fewer ballots. That's a big number. And even though you're not going to get it exact down probably to the ballot by using this, it's going to be good enough to find 45,000, especially if you compare each of those sealed boxes. So you can go in now with this idea and say, look, we're not going to break any seals. We're not going to look at any ballots. We just want to be able to weigh them and see how many are there.
But this is the United States of America, the world's oldest democracy, weighing boxes of ballots in a race where the guy is a sheriff running for governor who's confiscated all that tens of thousands of ballots. I mean, it's astounding. And this is what we're doing going into an election, a midterm election, if we have it, that could decide the fate of the earth. And by the way, before the show came on, I watched Pam Bondi explaining in her inimitable fashion. Oh no, it wasn't Pam Bondi. It's the Leave It, the press secretary, explaining as if the reporter who asked the question, was Donald Trump serious about canceling the 2026 election? And she said, well, you weren't in the room, and anybody in the room knew that he was joking. Donald Trump, of course, we all know, has a
we're just joking.
sense of humor. As if, and then the Fox guys came on and said they labeled the reporter as, dare I say it, a nerd. There we go. It's astounding. Mike Hirsch has a hand, and then we'll go back to Ken Bennett and John Brakey and Ray Lutz. I mean, this is what we're going into, folks. California, the biggest state in the country, has a candidate for governor, a sheriff who has confiscated tens of thousands of ballots for what? I mean, what's the point? So
no, it does have a point though. That's the problem here, is that unfortunately Bianco was right for trying to, I don't know if you want to say he should have seized the ballots, but they wanted to stop them from being destroyed. And there's mandatory destruction after 6 months, and that happens. It happened on the 10th of April. So where are we now? We're 20th. It would have been 10 days ago that they were destroyed, and it's mandatory destruction. So
why is it mandatory that ballots be destroyed?
And also it's mandatory destruction to destroy the ballot images, all the cast vote records, all the good data is destroyed. It's because they want a final answer with no one going back to check on anything. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
We need to be able to keep these records.
Are you saying there's not enough room in California to safely store these ballots? Not enough computer space to?
No, that's not the reason they're doing it. They're doing it so that no one can check on their work. Why would you want someone checking on you?
How can
they want to be? They want to be able to fix. They want to be able to fix the election. Swear to God. And in California, it's really bad. The Democratic Party, especially in LA, is just overwhelmingly, I think, corrupt. I mean, I believe that they've been fixing the numbers for years. I can tell you all the stories, but I just want to say one thing here. An opportunity for people to be involved right now, especially in California, is to go see the logic and accuracy test and check it out, because they're supposed to be testing the equipment, and they usually don't do a very good job. And I'm going to be going in on Wednesday to the San Diego test, and I'm going to film it there so that everybody can become educated about how bad it is. But they all this equipment they have, especially the touch screens, they're supposed to touch everything and make sure that it's all correct. Think about how much work that is. Every single touch screen is supposed to be fully checked. That's another disaster about these touch screens. So much testing is required.
It's unreal. Well, everybody, of course, has seen Chinatown, so we know that no corruption is possible. But remember, this is the situation going into the 26th election. this kind of stuff going on in a democracy, a so-called democracy, or as Gary O'Connor wants me, air quote democracy. I mean, it's insane. And thank you, Ken, John, and Ray for being on the front lines of this. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Mike Hirsch, you want to jump in? Oh, Ken, go ahead, and then Mike.
No,
Ken?
I just wanted to hear, I wanted to hear Mike Hirsch's question.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I want to thank all of you guys. I'm a nerd. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not ashamed of being called a nerd because I care about how things work and I care about the accuracy of our elections. And maybe we should have a nerd as our White House press spokesperson so we wouldn't have so many damn lies coming out of there. That might be good. Have somebody who cared about accuracy. And it's not just a Republican problem, as we've talked about. This is a nonpartisan, nonprofit enterprise. We want to have fair, clean, open elections. We want to have people be able to vote if they're a legitimate voter. And we want to have their votes counted as cast. So, and Sonny, you asked my question right before I could ask it. What are we going to do about it? You guys are doing great work. How can we help you and bring it to our states to clean up all these messes? Because if it's going bad in California,
to come in. That would be a very
Mike,
important, because Ken's a great speaker and can explain how
Mike,
solutions are.
What I have suggested is a 5-point plan. Audit USA has embraced it completely. And here's the 5 points. Every election jurisdiction, before they certify the election, publishes, and this is already public information, the list of eligible voters that were eligible to vote in the election. Second is the list of who voted in the election. So let's say you have a jurisdiction with 1,000 people in it, eligible to vote, the list of those people by name and address, and that's called the voter registration rolls. Those are already public records in every state and every jurisdiction. Who are the 1,000 people that were eligible to vote in an election? Second, who voted? 800, let's say, 80%. That's what Arizona had in the last presidential election. 80% voted. There shouldn't be anybody on the list of 800 who voted that wasn't on the list of 1,000 who were eligible. The third is to verify that the number of ballots counted in the election equals the number of people on list number 2, people who voted. Pretty simple.
it sounds like back when I was in elementary school, the teacher used to always say, show your work.
Exactly.
It just sounds like arithmetic. Make sure the
Number
numbers add
four,
up.
number 4 of the 800 ballots, when those ballots went through the system, there was an image, a picture taken of each ballot. And the votes from those ballots were recorded on a spreadsheet called the cast vote record. Those ballot images and the cast vote record should be made public before the election is certified so that you can cross-check. You can go to any ballot image. You can pull up ballot image number 342, and you can go to row 342 of the cast vote record, and you can see on the image of ballot 342 that there was a vote for Smith in this race, Jones in that race, and Garcia in this race. On the cast vote record, you can go to the columns and see that the system recorded a vote for Smith and Jones and Garcia in their respective races. You can double check the total columns for Smith and Jones and Garcia to make sure that the totals on the spreadsheet are what the county told you each candidate got in total votes. And then the fifth one would be a spot check of somewhere between 2 to 5% of the actual paper ballots or paper records of ballots, because even if you vote on an electronic machine, it produces a receipt. The fifth step would be a spot check of 2 to 5% of the votes on the ballot images. Pull up ballot image number 342. Go to the box that ballot number 342 is in. They're all marked. Find 342 and make sure that the actual paper ballot is exactly the same as the ballot image.
Match it
Nobody
like
was
a
messing.
fingerprint. Yeah.
Nobody was messing with taking a favorable ballot image that they found on a previous ballot and reproducing it every 19th ballot or whatever to influence the outcome. So, who was eligible to vote? Who voted? Ballots equal the number of people who voted. You can compare the ballot images to the cast vote record, and you spot check 2 to 5% or 10 or whatever you want to do. A closer election, you might want to spot check more ballots.
I would add one more thing to your list there, Ken, and
Okay.
that is check all of the chain of custody documents. How many ballots came in from the mail? How many
Good.
came
Well,
in from drop boxes? How many were voted at each center? And
right.
those documents are made, signed by everybody, and they should add up to all those same numbers. That's what's going on in Riverside, and
Okay.
they're not balancing that. So
Excellent
that'd be
point,
one
Ray.
more thing.
And that would be part of step 3.
So
When
maybe
you-
that's number 6. Oh, okay,
It's
number 3.
it's 3A.
Okay.
It's
And
3A.
I have
It's
And
the
you're talking, everybody, we're at the top of the hour.
Okay.
Linda, Paul, Roger, and Arnie, we're going to go to Nuke stuff in about, if you give us 10 more minutes. We're talking with Ken Bennett here, who's a former Secretary of State of the state of Arizona. So he speaks from the heights here. John Brakey, the criminal who's been trying to check the ballots in Pima County here, and Ray Lutz, a real expert on all this technology. And so Ruth Strauss has a hand. And Mike, is your a residual hand there? Or let's go to Ruth and then we'll come back to
Well,
you, Mike.
all I'm saying is that it's a great job between Ken and John and Ray. And what I'd like to do is kind of streamline that, get that into a easy, digestible form and get it out everywhere we can. That has to
Thank you,
be
Mike.
a top
Well, let's
priority of what we're doing.
take the transcription of this, which we get from Steve, our great engineer, and then we'll transcribe it. Mike, you can turn it into an article, and we'll put it out
Beautiful.
there. I mean, that's one of the great things of this these calls. We do get a written record. We'll have to edit out all the swear words from John Brakey, but otherwise.
Well, he is a criminal. He's the Robin Hood of the Republic.
Yeah.
So,
John Brakey has been sanctioned. Oh my God. Ruth Strauss.
They're not gonna. There's no way they can get away with it. It's just intimidation. It's all it is. And
well, they picked the wrong person to try to intimidate, John.
Yeah, let's hear from Ruth. Let's hear from Ruth.
This is a
Ruth,
quickie.
go ahead. Dr. Ruth.
I have one quick point to make, but before that, was Arizona the one that had the ninjas that were counting the votes? That was great. I loved that when the guy put down a $400,000 down payment on his Florida apartment, and he was plural, except he was only one person. But anyway,
10 kids.
Ray will be more familiar with this, if at all. But our crooked recorder or vote, whatever they call it, commissioner in Los Angeles, Dean Logan, spent $300 million on voting machines. I got to see the forensic analysis of those machines. There were 47 faults and 7 critical ones of the machines, places where the machines could be compromised. And so I wanted to know if Ray or anybody knew about this and could comment on what, if anything, we can do about that. I mean, there were things like, the paper going through the printer twice, being able to open the back of the machine and take wads of, votes out, etc. I mean, it was jaw-dropping. Thank you.
I guess I can just say that we've got to get over to hand marked paper. In California, we do have the option of doing vote by mail, which is hand marked paper ballots. And then you get away from most of the machines. And then we have a good solid paper record of exactly what you were shown, exactly what you read when you read the thing. The thing is about these BMDs and the touchscreens, you could be shown something that the opposite, like I want to make marijuana illegal.
BMD is a ballot marking device.
Yeah, touchscreen machine. If it says make marijuana legal and then you're shown illegal and you say, no, I want it to be legal. So how should I vote? No, so then it would show yes and no, exactly how you voted, but you were shown the opposite kind of a statement. And that can never be proven unless it's on a piece of paper that we can show this is exactly what you were shown. And that persists until later. That's why all of these machines that are in between the voter and the paper have to go. They have to go.
If you're on marijuana, what you see is up for grabs. But that's
so then you don't have to worry about it. But you could roll it up and use it as a
right. Exactly. Well, back in the day, of course, they voted on paper and then they rolled it up and smoked it. Steve Caruso, and then we're going to move on to energy here. This has been a fascinating session, and we're going to, of course, keep coming back because the question is, if we have an election in 26, which I think we will, how do we protect it? And I do want to mention very quickly, Orban was in power in Hungary for 16 years, and by all accounts did everything he could to rig that election, but he lost. And so, there's some encouragement there. Steve Caruso, go ahead.
Yeah, let this be an inspiration. But yeah, it is 420, and we won't mention the other reason for it being noted. But hold on a second.
Oh, today is 420. That's right, Mazel Tov. So
okay.
No wonder we've got problems with the technical stuff.
So no wonder we were talking about legalization.
What really happened in Ohio. Let me just say I have to be careful because the Attorney General wants to sanction me, and whatever I say could be used against me. They stole the election.
Well, that's Bob Petrakis. Thank you for that, Steve. Thank you. That's the great Bob Petrakis. It's kind of like seeing the Mick Jagger of election protection here. But thank you, Steve, for putting that up. And it is 4:20, so we will end at 4:20 California time. You guys, we're going to go into nukes in a minute. I am devastated to hear that Gallego, your so-called progressive U.S. senator, is now pro-nuclear. Thanks to MYLA RESON for telling us that. But Ray, John, and then Ken will let you have the last word. What are we going to do about this? I mean, how are we going to protect the 26th election?
To me, I just have to say this. Elections are not any good unless they're transparent, trackable, and publicly verifiable. And we live in a digital age with a hybrid system. It is very easy to do. I just want to say one other thing to go along with it. For years, they say, we can't let you have the images because you might know how people voted. Well, there was a study done, and it found out that 99.83% of all the ballots in Maricopa are totally anonymous. And we know where the problems are now. Ballot styles, Ken found that and showed me that. And then it's provisionals. And then the other one is the Arizona ballot. And it's all fixes for that. There's no reason. Voting is a secret process. The actual act, counting is a public. If you ever hear Ken Bennett tell the story about 1912 and how we used to do elections back then, it's a fascinating, simple story. You go in and vote. They'd say, hey, John, if you want to come back at 7 o'clock, you can watch us count. So let's say you go back, and then they announce the ballot, and then they punch a hole on it and put it in a string and say, hey, Mr. Brakey, you want to go look at it? Go look at it. That's what we got to get back to. And we can do that with a hybrid system using images. And what Ken elaborated about those 5 points and what Ray has thrown in some points in there, that's what we need. And it's simple. Every precinct committee man, woman, and candidate in a state should be emailed at 2 days after the canvass is done, a spreadsheet. And the images will be in the cloud. You don't have to check all 1,500 voters in that. You can do a risk limiting audit, but when you audit the whole roll because you're looking for any error. Because these machines, These machines, they claim that the error rate now, because it's digital, and I could believe this, is 1 mark error at 1.5 million now. That's what ES&S is
Right.
saying.
So John Brakey is the great godfather of advocating paper, hand-marked paper ballots, digitally scanned, and then counted through the digital scan and
Ray is
recounted if necessary with the paper ballots. By the way, I figured out, Trump is yelling about mail-in ballots, and it seems like he's going to lose that. So I think that the strategy will be that they'll abolish the post office. So you may get a ballot, but you won't have anywhere to mail it from. Ray Lutz and then Ken Bennett, you will wrap this up and we can go to nuclear power. Arnie
Yeah,
Gunter is with us,
so
Roger
two,
Rappaport and Linda Gunter.
two things really quick that I think are super important. Everybody needs to get involved. We need people with their eyeballs inside the election office. And they did studies on this. They did photocopies of just eyeballs, okay? Up by the coffee nook that was honor system. Donations went up by doubled because there was eyeballs on the wall. So you put your eyeballs into that election office and you're there looking around. Even if you're not sure you're doing the right thing, just being there is so very important that they see you.
Great.
And we got to get that. We got to get more people involved both before the election, because a lot of stuff is happening with vote by mail ballots before the election. They do a lot of counting ahead of time and after the election. So people get burned out at the election, but we got to do that. And one more thing, and I'll talk to John and Ken about this. I got a new system called ACRE. It means all contests reviewed and evaluated, and it's something that can work with their ABE system. So we're going to get both of those online. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing more on that, Ray.
Later. Ken Bennett, we're going to come back to this, obviously. We will not be meeting next week, but in 2 weeks we'll return to this. Ken Bennett, you want to get the last word, and then we're going to nuclear power.
All I would say, we're making, John and I made a presentation to one of the 15 counties in Arizona. We've offered to give this system to them and let them use it internally just to kind of verify their own work. We have to get election officials comfortable with reviewing their work before they go to the board of whatever to certify the election, so that they then feel more comfortable to have average citizens verify that an election was done right. And it includes the simple stuff like Ray was talking about. Do the chain of custody documents. Yep. We got 500 ballots from the mail. We got 500 ballots from the drop box, and we had 500 people walk in person to vote that day. Okay, then we should have 1,500 ballots counted. Did we or did we not? Those varies. I mean, I don't know who it was, Mike or whatever. Sounds like we're back in 5th grade, which is just fundamental stuff. And that's exactly where we're at. We have to just become comfortable and help election officials become more comfortable with having their work checked.
Thank you so much. That's former Secretary of State of the state of Arizona, Ken Bennett. Thanks for being with us, John Brakey and Ray Lutz. Mickey Leader, do you want to come in very quickly with you say it's real important? And now, how are we doing on sound? Does everybody, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Everybody good? Okay, Mickey Leader, I don't know what happened to you.
Yeah.
She was going to ask a question and she went away. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much. I'll get her later. Come back in 2 weeks. We're going to continue this. And like I say, voting by mail may not be the problem. Having a post office, that's not a given anymore. All right, you guys, take care. Thank you so much. We're going to go next to something that really needs to be evaluated in its deepest depths, including in Arizona. You got the 3 reactors at Palo Verde there, and we had 3 truly great experts with us. Roger Rappaport, a great journalist in Western Michigan who's been writing about the Palisades reactor. Arnie Gunderson, who's a tremendously important nuclear engineer, and Linda Gunter, who's been on the case forever. And there's Roger. How you doing, brother?
Hi.
And Linda Gunter is the only person in the anti-nuclear movement that I know of who has met John McEnroe and was actually a tennis reporter. Linda, let's start with you. You've got a new book out. Do we have Linda Gunter with us?
Linda is here, but she hasn't been co-hosted yet.
Okay, and
Linda-
Arnie Gunderson, you're with us?
Oh, now she is.
Okay, Linda Pence Gunter, you are, I think, in the wilds of Tacoma Park, and you have a new book. You are with Beyond Nuclear, and then we're going to go to Arnie Gunderson, and then Roger Rappaport, my cohort from the University of Michigan Daily, back 150 years ago. Mickey, and Mickey, we'll come back to you if we can, please. Linda Gunter, you have a new book. And what is it called? Can we see a cover? There we go. Oh my God, that's clear enough.
It is
So,
iconic. You can't
what is the book? Is there any good sex in it? And why will people want to read your book? And tell us more.
Well, there are some good jokes in it, hopefully, or some funny parts of it, because I really wanted to write a book that was in very much in a lay tongue, in accessible language that told the stories and put the human face on the story of nuclear power and nuclear weapons, rather than a lot of charts and graphs and scientific and technical details, which can, I think, put people off. There are so many important books and reports out there that do a great job with that. So this is really storytelling, especially from the point of view of the people to whom this happens all along the uranium chain, and particularly the communities of color and indigenous communities, who are often the most targeted and the most victimized by not only the nuclear power sector, but of course also in the case of the atomic testing as well. And a lot of the stories overlap. So it's called No to Nuclear: Why Nuclear Power Destroys Lives, Derails Climate Progress, and Provokes War, something we've seen rather vividly recently, obviously, with Iran. And it's available from Pluto Press. You can order it online, and I will just put into your chat.
I just put it in there. Arnie, you can turn your camera on.
I'm going to put a little discount code in there so that when you order it, you can get 30% off if you put that code in. Some people have had trouble with the page. It does default to pounds in the UK because it's a UK publisher. Just choose US dollars in the scroll down menu at the top, and then make sure you put United States as your country in the form, and you will get the book.
Great. So, Linda, you have been in the involved in fighting nuclear power for a couple of centuries, and although you look like you're 18, but nonetheless, what is the basis of your book, and when it just came out, right?
It was published in the US in March 20th. It was out a little bit earlier in the UK, so I did just come back from there doing a quick book tour with it there because they had it early. And like I said, it really tells the story from the beginning to end of the uranium chain, and what it's like to be on the receiving end of this industry. So it's about every aspect, but it also makes the case about why nuclear power is not only not useful to address the climate crisis, but actually an impediment towards it. Because I think what we're seeing now is such a tsunami of propaganda, and we've seen it for decades, but it's really ramped up in the last 4 or 5 years, that is embedded in people's mind that we have to have nuclear power for the climate crisis, that small modular reactors, as they call them, are faster, cheaper, safer, cleaner, and so forth. And it's working because it's just such a saturation campaign. So I really wanted to put almost like an indictment together. When you read the book, it covers a lot of different areas of impact, including wildlife, nature, space, the moon. And so I'm hoping there's something for everyone there. And by the time you finish it, you'll be on board with the idea that this is not the way it ever was and never should have been. And we must obviously end it quickly.
Okay, well, we got 65 people with us, 65 of the best and brightest. And my thesis, and I'm going to go to Arnie Gunderson and then Roger Rappaport, is that this is the second or third or fourth or fifth major it's not a groundswell, it's a top-down attack trying to push nuclear power. And I think that the energy industry, the people, the billionaires who own and operate the energy industry worldwide, realize that we are now at the brink of a total transformation to renewables. In the last couple of years, more than 80 or 90% of all new energy installations have been solar, wind, geothermal, backed with batteries. And they're losing. And they don't have a product that in any way, shape, or form is viable. And they also have a time gap because they're not going to be building any more big reactors in the US. And the small ones can't come online at least till 2030. So it's a pie in the sky nonsense, and the numbers do not add up. When you have the Cato Institute, the leading light for free market economy, denouncing small reactors, you know you got a problem. So I want to call Roger Rappaport is at the cutting edge of the writing about this new thing they came up with to revive dead reactors. Zombieism here is what we're talking about. And it's kind of like taking the Pinto that you've got on blocks in your front yard and, spending a couple $1 million to get it on the road. Now, Arnie Gunderson, you have done a tremendous amount. Arnie Gunderson is a world-class nuclear engineer. And when Fukushima happened, Arnie was pretty much the go-to guy for the Western media. I didn't see anybody with any other more technical credibility out there than Arnie. We have this project that Roger's been writing about in Palisades, Michigan, where they've taken a dead reactor and Holtec, which is operation coming out of New Jersey, which has never operated and never restarted a nuclear plant, has gotten a contract to come in and billions of dollars and restart Palisades. And Roger had a front page or a major op-ed in the Detroit Free Press, the biggest paper in Michigan, about why this can't happen. Can you give us, Arnie, some of the technical background of what they're really facing at Palisades? And then Roger will pick it up from there.
Yeah, thanks, Harvey. Thanks for having us and doing this. Let's do your Pinto analogy. Now, I'm really old here, but the Pinto was this car that when it got rear-ended, it blew up.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there were these tires called Firestone 500s that when you were driving down the road, they would blow up. So the equivalent of what's going on at Palisades is there was this old Pinto in the field, Harvey, and they painted it and they put new Firestone 500 tires on it. That's basically where we're at.
And they left the gas tank in the rear, which is well, my buddy Mark Dowie, wrote the story. So now you were telling me that Framatome, the French mega company, has been hired in to do some of the engineering at Palisades, and they're saying we can get the reactor running, but you can only run it for 14 months. And the tubes might blow up, so you can only run it like 5 miles an hour. Is that a reasonable analogy here?
That's really great, Harvey. What the group, this is Michael Keegan and Kevin Camps and Terry Lodge and Wally Taylor. We've been on the Palisades interaction with the NRC for the better part of 2 years now. And of course, Roger's been covering it. But what happened is that we picked up real early in September of 2024 that the steam generator tubes were awful. And we've been making the case that the plant should not be restarted unless they completely replace the steam generators. And they said the same thing when they applied to DOE for the $1.5 billion. They said the steam generators on the last legs. But after they got the money, they convinced the NRC that they could putty and paint this thing up. My father was a carpenter. I was saying a little putty and a little paint will make things look like what they ain't. And that's what Holtec has done. We've been saying that the tubes are going to fail, and they've been saying the tubes are not going to fail. But just 2 months ago.
But originally, to get the money, they said the tubes were going to fail.
Yes.
Right? So
yes,
they said the tubes are going to fail. The tubes are going to fail. And by the way, Ray Lutz is a veteran of the fight, and MYLA RESON are both veterans of the fight at San Onofre, where we had a so-called minor tube issue. So what you're saying is Holtec went to the feds, said the tubes are going to fail, give us $1.5 billion to fix the tubes. They got the money, and now they're saying the tubes are not going to fail, and we're going to pay a dividend. Is that right?
Yeah. That's it. What could possibly go wrong, Harvey? But so the next thing that happened was 2 months ago. They've been sticking to the fact that, well, we'll re-inspect it 18 months from now when the next refueling outage comes up. And we've been saying it's going to break before that. Well, 2 months ago, Framatome came out with a report that had a lot of flaws in it, but it still said it's not going to make it to 18. It's going to fail at It's going to fail at 14. So here's Framatome, this huge company, agreeing with little old Ernie Gunderson and our little group of our merry little group of bandits here out in Michigan. So that now they're admitting to it. But my point is, we wrote I think one of the best reports I've ever written. It was on this issue, and our point is that it shut it down for another 2 years, pull the steam generators out, replace them. They don't want to do that until they get us an extra 20-year license. They're hanging on, like a cat on a curtain, hoping to get to 2031 when they get another 20-year license, at which point they'll probably replace the steam generator. It's not going to last that long, and Harvey, it's really dangerous. If a tube were to fail like it did at San Onofre, well, and I was active in closing that plant. If a tube were to fail there, this plant is worse because it has what's called atmospheric dumps. And dump is the operative word there. When a tube fails, they dump that radiation directly into the atmosphere. And they're going to have to declare an emergency and evacuate people out for 10 miles. Nobody wants that to happen.
Well, Roger Rappaport, and by the way, Linda Pence, Ray Lutz, who I'm going to call on after Roger, just said he bought your book. So you had a financial incentive for coming on the call. And we're going to come back to you. Roger, you've been covering this, and you're nearby. All of us are, I'm in LA, but you're around the corner. What are you going to do about this?
Give me a hard time.
So, if it would be possible to imagine going in and getting $3 billion, half of which is a loan, to resurrect this plant. If you can imagine that amount of money, then you understand what an incredible marketing team Holtec is. So they convinced 2 Michigan governors, one Gretchen Whitmer, who's currently in office, and her predecessor, who was Biden's Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, and the president himself, and Congress and the Michigan legislature to come up with $3 billion, $1.5 billion of it is a loan, and then other grants and so forth to reopen this plant. And here's what the press release said. It closed in 4 years ago in 2022, and in June of 2024, exactly 24 months ago or 23 months ago now, this plant was going to open and provide power for 800,000 homes. Okay. And as a result of that, they got some additional money from the Department of Agriculture to subsidize the cost of this energy through 2 co-ops that supply primarily customers in rural areas in Michigan and Indiana. Well, here's what actually happened. The plant never opened. Okay. And it's a very interesting question. Obviously, as Arnie has pointed out correctly, for many good reasons, Holtec itself has decided not to open the plant. Okay. Now, remember this. Holtec is a big company, but this plant is a part of a division of Holtec that's its own LLC. Okay. So the money that they have comes from only 2 places. It comes from the Michigan, of course, the Michigan and the federal government, and it also comes from ratepayers. Well, guess what? There's no money coming in from ratepayers because they're not producing any electricity. Okay. So here's what happens. The day they turn the plant on, that's the day they have to start repaying that $1.5 billion loan with money from the customers, right? Well, there's a little bit of a problem. If they turn the plant off, that means the energy that they get has to be bought on the spot market. And those of you who've been watching the spot market for energy may have noticed that prices have gone up, right? So not only do they have to go out and buy it on the spot market and pay a premium for it, but on top of that, then the customers reap the disaster of having to pay more money for this. And every time they shut down, that means they're not selling electricity, which means they don't have the money to repay the loan. So no wonder they haven't reopened the plant, because the day they reopen it, that means they have to get the money from the ratepayers to repay it, and they can't do that if they're not selling them electricity. In other words, they can't take it out of income because when they go out on the spot market to buy it, they have to take the money that they get from the ratepayers and pay all the money to the other companies that are selling them energy. So it's no wonder that they have chosen not to reopen this plant 2 years late. And what that means is $3 billion that could have gone for renewables has gone for nothing. Okay. Now,
Unreal.
I'm telling you this because they understand the economics of this. So they already know that they're going to have to shut down. And every time they shut down, that means they're shelling out money and they're not repaying the loan. So the ultimate end of this scenario is bankruptcy. Now, remember, this is an LLC. Keep this in mind. And that means bankruptcy is the only option. So guess who comes in and repays the loan to the federal and state government? You and me. Our taxpayer.
You're in the rate
Right.
base. I'm paying for Diablo Canyon. You're
Right.
Palisades. So Linda Gunter, having been written a whole book about
Whole
this
book about this,
industry,
yeah.
I would guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Framatome, which is the French industry,
Right.
has probably built more nuclear plants than anybody else.
Right.
Probably more than maybe more than Westinghouse. I don't know, but
Yeah.
for I have never heard in all my years an engineer come in and say, "Well, we can start your plant up, but you can only don't run it for more than 14 months, or it's going to blow up."
Well, wait a minute. There's a punchline to this, Harvey.
Yeah,
And let me try to explain it. So guess what? In the middle of all this, they've gotten $400 million to build, guess what? SMRs, which they also have never built before or operated, right? So they're getting more money. They're cutting down entire forests to build these SMRs after failing to get Palisades reopened. Now, would you give $400 million to a company after you gave them $3 billion?
If I'm Donald Trump, I would absolutely. Of course,
Right.
they got to give me a commission, right?
Exactly.
So
the question is, why is the federal government giving, and the state government, which gave them money also, why are they giving $400 million to get started building SMRs when they can't even get Palisades reopened? It's not exactly a ringing endorsement. And this is where Linda's book,
you can give
this
us
is where
some
Linda's
input
book
on that.
comes in. Yeah.
Linda, do you have an answer for that?
Why are they doing it? You're all probably part of the collective insanity that seems to have infected
Right.
everyone. You're
Yeah.
just looking at this virus that's gone around amongst
Right.
us, especially who all want one. It's sort of the thing you have to want. It's like a beanie baby or something to them. I don't know what this is about, but it's the trendy thing. They haven't really looked to see if it's any use. They don't seem to understand, as you pointed out earlier, that if you concentrate all your time and money on a fool's errand like new nuclear plants, while we're waiting for them to never materialize, and squeeze and trying to suffocate renewables, which, as you know,
Well, that's the point.
this is the Trump administration is also doing. What do you do instead? You continue to use fossil fuels, thereby making climate change
Right.
worse. So it's really counterproductive.
You got that right. And again, your book is called No Nuclear, right?
No to nuclear, why nuclear power destroys lives, derails climate progress, and provokes war.
Well, you've made a sale already, so hopefully more people will line up to buy the book. Ray Lutz and then MYLA RESON, you are both, we've seen this before. I think that they're using new nuclear as a way to stifle renewables and keep burning fossil fuels. I mean, I think the new nuclear thing, of course, it has a life of its own, but it's really a red herring, if you want to call it that, or a dead herring to really divert the resources away from renewables before renewables take over the planet, and they are certainly taking over in Europe.
Hey,
You know,
Sonny,
yes,
how about Blinky the three-eyed herring?
yeah, yes, Blinky the Three-Eyed. You know, we did a campaign about those of you who don't know, go watch The Simpsons. There was a three-eyed fish that they caught in the pond next to the Homer Simpson's nuclear plant. Ray Lutz and then Maya Reeson, and then we'll go back to Arnie. Can you give us the briefly what happened with the steam generators at San Onofre, which led to the shutdown there?
Well, I'm just a little small fry compared to these heavyweights like Arnie Gunderson and Roger, but I did get intensely involved in San Onofre. I went to the negotiations between the company and the ratepayer or orgs through the CPUC, et cetera, and we sued them, and we actually got them to reverse it and change 706. $64 million for the ratepayer. However, I'm sure they just up the rates in the next few rounds anyway. So those sort of cases are ridiculous. But what they did there, I learned, is that they had this team of engineers try to design steam generators with a list of requirements that were completely unreachable. They went ahead and did it. These are the largest steam generators in the world. They went to a company that had never designed any that are this big because they're the only ones. Their design was a little bit different. And they said, well, the modeling software puts the tubes in a triangular orientation, so they're actually in a square orientation, and they're actually in a triangular orientation. And they said, okay, well, we have a fudge factor for that. And we put it in. And the consultant said, well, I don't know about the fudge factor, if it's really going to work out, if they're going to vibrate too much. And they said, well, we don't have time for any more modeling. Let's just go ahead and make all of the tolerances zero. So how can you make something with zero tolerances? You really can't. But they said the tolerances would be zero. We're just going to make it perfect, and therefore it won't rattle. And sure enough, it rattled itself and started leaking in only 11 months. And then we ended up fighting them over the waste, which was most of the time that I spent trying to get it off of this location where it's still only 100 feet from the water. And
Right. For those of you who don't know, San Onofre is between LA and San Diego.
Yeah,
And
it's in San Diego County.
And three reactor domes there, but one shut a long time ago. So the two that came in, which was Mitsubishi, by the way, they completely screwed it up.
Yeah, they screwed it up, and it wasn't this was not a terrorist attack. It wasn't a tsunami wave. It wasn't an earthquake. Nothing like that. This was a failure of design, and so therefore you really can't trust someone that says, "Oh, I've got a brand new design that won't have any problems." I'll tell you, these are not trivial things to design. The modular reactors, if you look at anybody that's evaluated those, they say it doesn't hit any of there's no benefits to making them smaller like this. It doesn't actually improve any of the bottom line. And so they're even less competitive against renewables. So, but I'll tell you one thing, I wanted to make a comment. Why are they pushing these small modular reactors and so forth? And I'll tell you something I learned in the economic book, and that was there's a school of thought that they want to keep people in this field so that they can make nuclear bombs and be ready for the next nuclear war. And so they want to have people graduate and think, oh, I've got a future in nuclear industry, and go into it and then be able to make their bombs. That's a big factor.
That's probably why China, which is totally leading the world in renewables, China leads the world with more than half of the sales in solar panels, wind turbines, geothermal, and batteries. And yet they're building more than 30 reactors. It has to be totally for the weapons industry, as are these small reactors. But Roger, maybe you should collaborate with these Californians and do a companion piece on what happened at San Onofre.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah,
I just
really.
wanna- I just wanna-
Here's
Go
Myla
ahead.
Reson, who was right in the middle of it. Myla?
Go ahead.
Right, and I have to say that I met both Arnie and Ray at one of the meetings about San Onofre when right after the leak that was caused by the instability in the tubes in the reactor, and Ray, I want to correct you and say that they were not saying that they had a new design. They were saying that the design was so similar to the generators that they were replacing that no scrutiny from the NRC was required. They were calling it, they were calling it like for like.
Yeah, that's right. But they were not even close to that when you look at their documents.
Right. What they did was they got greedy.
Yeah.
And they decided that since they were going to have to apply for an extension in not too far in the distant future, that they would go ahead and order these new generators that had a higher capacity. And they wanted to cram far more tubes into those generators, and in order to do that they had to remove some of the stabilizing interior structure. Isn't that right, Arnie? Would you nod your head if you're in agreement on that one? And so they got greedy, and as a result of that, the tubes were not stable, and they started rattling and shaking and rubbing up against one another, and finally burst and released some radioactivity and set off some alarms. And that was not that long after Fukushima, and people were already hyper aware. This was, I believe, I'm trying to remember the date, but it was not that long after Fukushima. And the surrounding communities organized, and that was a part of why we succeeded, among other things.
Definitely.
You know, there were many factors, but the community coalesced because they were hyper aware.
So Arnie Gunderson, what are the parallels in the engineering world between what happened at San Onofre and what's happening at Palisades?
Yeah, Myla, you were right about that whole derivation there. The old San Onofre steam generators had an empty spot in the middle of the generator. And of course, combustion engineering knew that there would be too much heat generated if they tried to put tubes in there. But Mitsubishi tried to put 600 extra tubes into the center of that generator that caused the extra heat and the vibration. Palisades has those 600 tubes in place, but when they put that generator in, they knew there was going to be a problem, so they plugged them all and never ran it. So the Palisades generator, as it ran for the 30 years, had plugged tubes. And what did Holtec do to get more power out of this thing? They unplugged the tubes that were known to cause the problem over in San Onofre. So now we've got a San Onofre lookalike in the steam generator at Palisades.
So are you saying they literally replicated the problem that brought down San Onofre?
Exactly right.
Yes.
You gotta be kidding me.
But I want to jump in
crazy.
for 1 second, Arnie. I think what's hard for anybody to understand is not just what you're saying, but from day one, the idea of reopening this plant was a complete and total disaster. And you gave them you and Kevin and others explained to them exactly what was going to happen. And it's literally happened even quicker than you imagined. It's happened before they've even opened the plant, which is unbelievable. I honestly believe that the people working there inside the plant do not want it to reopen, because the sooner they reopen it, the sooner it fails, and the sooner they lose their $140,000 a year jobs It's about as simple as that.
Well, not to mention their lives. I mean,
Yeah, and the safety. Am I right, Arnie? I mean,
I have no idea what their motivation is, but they did hire back some of the old people that either retired or
right.
moved around the country. So but now you've got a group of people who've never worked together before. You know, managers from half a dozen different companies. So you've got, I've been saying it's a rookie plant, and I think their office is a Holiday Inn Express, but they are a rookie organization with a geriatric reactor that they, for whatever reason, are refusing to invest in. The other thing is that Holtec bought this thing for scrap, but Entergy wasn't making any money on it unless it was subsidized. So the reason it closed in the first place is because the state subsidy to Entergy ended. So of course, Entergy wasn't going to lose money. Holtec came in and got a new subsidy, probably even larger than Entergy's, and is now going to try to keep that plant running when Entergy knew it would not run. So
it's mind-boggling. But so basically, Holtec, a New Jersey company, and by the way, the entire New Jersey Democratic Party has come out in favor of nuclear power. Yeah, a new governor, and she's gung-ho nuclear. These people are nuts. So, but you're saying that after seeing, they must know what happened at San Onofre. I mean, so they maybe don't care because it's all based on subsidies. It's all based on handouts, right?
Well, I think
there's no market model there's no market model on this earth by which Palisades makes any sense.
That's correct. You know, the Holtec is in the process of an initial public offering, an IPO to the tune of about $10 billion. And the cornerstone of that IPO is claiming that they got Palisades running. Now, if it runs for a couple of months and they get the IPO, then $10 billion flows in. If they can hold it together for a couple months, then the IPO will make a lot of money. But you know, so the cornerstone of that IPO is getting Palisades online, and it's privately held. I am absolutely convinced that the entire management structure at Palisades has bonuses tied to that IPO.
Well, we had this at you remember, of course, Shoreham on Long Island operated for one day or a few hours. And then it cost the ratepayers of Long Island zillions of dollars. I mean, ridiculous. Linda Gunter, you've got another customer waiting. Mickey Weeder wants to buy a book. If you want to post the link again in the chat, that would be great. Do you want to say anything before I go back to Roger here? I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well, I think Viner's been waiting ages to get.
Yes, Vina Colley, go ahead, please. And this is really fast and very productive discussion here. I mean, the obvious parallel is San Onofre, and it cost a fortune what they did at San Onofre. So let's see how they gonna explain this to the people of Michigan. Roger, you're the guy with the mouthpiece there. I mean, this is really important stuff. Go ahead, Vina Colley, and we'll go to Mike Hirsch and then back to Arnie.
I'm from the forgotten site, the Portsmouth Gas and Diffusion Plant in Piketon, Ohio. And I've been talking about these small modular reactors for a year. And I've been talking about HALO, which has been running since October of 23. And HALO is making fuel for the small modular reactors. And they're putting $9 billion in Piketon, the largest facility in the world. And one of the most contaminated facilities that seems like they don't want to talk about it. But they're making these data centers. And I think the small modular reactors they want to put at Piketon, they want to put a large gas power plant in Piketon. And we are the most contaminated site in the world that's not been addressed for the cancers.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I saw a wonderful documentary. Wonderful, it's mind-boggling, by Dwayne Pullman on what's going on down at Piketon. It's a nightmare. And of course, HALEU is very, very, Linda, you probably deal with HALEU in your book, the highly enriched uranium that comes from Russia, which is just basically close to bomb grade. All these years they've denied any connection between the commercial industry and the weapons industry. And here these small reactors are supposed to operate on uranium that's damn near, you could almost stick it in a bomb. Is that right?
I mean, I'll let the engineer answer that question, because that sounds a little bit of an oversimplification. But I think the issue with HALEU fuel.
Linda, your volume is quite low.
I'm
Your
sorry.
voice.
Can you hear me now? I have got a microphone that I can plug in, but then it seems to mute everybody else. So
Okay, go ahead.
Can't hear me?
Yeah, just speak loud.
Yeah, okay, I'll project my voice. But I said that I think that I'll let Arnie answer the technical aspects of this, because as I said at the beginning, I prefaced my remarks at the beginning, the book is deliberately not written in that way in order to be sort of a little bit more accessible to the lay audience. But nevertheless, obviously, HALEU fuel at the moment, as you said, Harvey, is only made by the Russians. And interestingly, what we've seen since the advent of the Russian invasion of Ukraine is efforts to boycott and stop buying fossil fuels from Russia, but the uranium piece has always had this special dispensation and will probably continue to do so because it's the only place you can get it from. If in fact there's ever a reactor that is ready to take it, because as we also said at the beginning, a lot of these small modular reactors are on paper only and may never get here. We might get one or two because the Trump administration is throwing so much money at them and trying to dismantle the regulatory environment so that they don't have to jump over any high safety bars. But the TerraPower Natrium reactor that Bill Gates wants to build is one of the ones that needs this kind of fuel. And one of the things I feel like, which is I point out in the book, and which is most criminal, is that Bill Gates originally said that this project would cost $4 billion and went to the Department of Energy to ask for a $2 billion subsidy. This is a multi-billionaire who could buy us all 5 times over and not even notice. If he wants a vanity nuclear project, he should pay for it. But he's asked and he's received taxpayer money for this project, which may never materialize. So that to me is part of the sort of criminal cabal that we see permeate this industry in every facet. But they are, because his reactor is a fast reactor, it is much more prevalent to proliferation issues.
Well, beautifully spoken. I will say there is a substantial group of people that would support a small reactor if it were sited at Mar-a-Lago. But
can I say one thing?
That's another issue. Did someone want to speak, and then we'll go back to Arnie and Roger?
I want to finish that. What I think is going to happen to Python for 70 years, we used the Russian uranium stuff since 93 was shipped. It contaminated the plant so bad and it affected the workers. And what I think is going on is they're going to take the transuranic waste and they're going to send it to Python and we're going to reprocess it. Because that's what we did for 70 years without anybody even knowing that we were reprocessing plutonium at Python. And so they have to get rid of their waste. And I think this is the way they're trying to get rid of the waste. HALEU's been going on since 2023, and no one is trying to stop this at Python.
Wow. It's always great to have you, Vina. We're at 3:53. We're going to get burned through to 4:20 California time on 4:20, which is appropriate. There is a pot store down the street if you guys want to come over here. But otherwise, this is a really important discussion. MYLA, do you want to jump in, and then we'll go back to Arnie?
Vina, you reminded me of the work I did on so-called depleted uranium weaponry. It seemed to me that the whole idea behind substituting tungsten, which was the dense metal that used to be used for armoring military tanks and for bullet casings, etc., was substituted with this vast inventory that we had of so-called depleted uranium. that was kind of the leftovers from enriching uranium. And it seemed to me like that was just a nuclear waste disposal workaround.
Well,
That
we
it
have
would have been very expensive to try to sequester and isolate all of that waste from the accessible environment. So they decided to
we
put it
have
in weapons. So they decided to put it in weapons, Mina. So it just seems like there's a parallel there. And I'm wondering if we can invite Ace Hoffman to join
Yeah,
us.
Ace Hoffman, come on in. Ace has I've done a lot of work here in California. He's a great animator. And Vina, is there something else you want to say before we go to Arnie and then Roger and then Ace again? And Mike Hirsch, you've raised a hand.
Yes, yes, Piketon has 25,000 depleted uranium on site. And we also have a local kid that was in that tank from friendly fire. They got killed and the government lied to the family. And then they went to Senator Glenn and found out the truth. But he was in that tank with the armor piercing bullets. I'm sorry about my voice. It's coming and going. I've
All
had
right. We
bronchitis.
Mickey Leader, you had a hand earlier. I'll try and get you unmuted, and Mike Hirsch, and then we'll go to Arnie. I can't get you on we had Mickey. There you go. Mickey Leader, go ahead.
Hi, I'm calling for the other one, but I'm not talking about that till you let me do it. I wanted to say, do you remember months ago, we had people talking about the nuclear power plants in Ukraine?
Yes, and that's
Okay, and everybody was very concerned about that. Recently, I live in Rockland County, and in Westchester, there was these people wanted to bring Indian Point back. Now, the hubbub that started over that, people were insane and said, "Are you crazy? We need to get rid of it and undo it and disappear it. It's dangerous." And how much do you think Trump is involved in this? Because the last incident, I'm an advocate for special needs kids, had a very bright autistic kid that I helped get through all the schooling and college. Family moved down to Orlando, and the father tried to get him into the union. For what, I don't remember, but he got
Okay.
him into a steam fitters union. The kid passed all the tests. He had never done anything like that.
Okay.
And he's assigned to work for NASA with doing the pipes. And I spoke to him because he thanked me for
Okay.
helping him. And he said, I'm really excited because I'm being trained to work with the rocket ships and to be able to go and make nuclear um, generators for the moon. I said, what are you, crazy?
No,
He
they're
said,
talking about that. You're right about that, Mickey. I'm glad you brought it up.
so
They are.
follow the money. Who the hell is doing this?
Right. Well, I understand that Trump is going to personally go on that voyage to help install the nuclear reactor on the moon. So if that's the case, I'm going to support it. But Mickey, that's very important. I'm glad you brought that up because the nuclear is now. Was a Project Galileo. They were going to shoot plutonium into space. I think they did in one case, but nonetheless, we're dealing with all that. Thank you, Mickey, and also. Arnie, and if you can comment on Indian Point, I think Mike is here. Is that a legacy hand, or did you want to speak, Mike?
No, I just want to say really quickly, we keep asking, well, what's the profit in this? It's going to lose money. It's not going to do that. It's like the plot from the Broadway show and the movie The Producers. They lose money. They make money by losing money. The
Right.
longer they keep this thing going, the subsidies keep rolling along. Let's not be naive. There's nothing on the up and up about it. And I just want to remind everybody, thank you so much, MYLA. Thank you so much, Mickey. Thank you so much, Vina, for underscoring how this is just completely crazy. It's
Yes, it
completely
is.
crazy. But the point is that what Greg Palast told us, the vulnerability to this isn't that people are afraid that they're going to die of cancer. Apparently, people don't care about that. People smoke, people do all kinds of things. That's not a big deal. But they don't want to be ripped off on their energy bill. And this is going to rip people off on their energy bill, whether they ever turn it on or whether they don't.
Right.
It's
I
already,
agree.
this is what's happening in Georgia. So what we need to do is start a couple of things, two things very important. One, start lining up plaintiffs to sue the crap out of these people, to sue them out of oblivion and shut them down while they're hemorrhaging our money. And number two, we need to go after these subsidies, and the biggest subsidy for the nuclear power industry is the Price-Anderson Act. We need to repeal Price-Anderson. We need to repeal every cent of these subsidies on the state and national level. We can't afford to irradiate ourselves to overpay for electricity. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And Mike, since you brought up Mel Brooks and the producers, I suggest that we rename the nuclear renaissance Springtime for Hitler. I think that would be
or springtime for nukes.
Yeah, right. Well, whatever. But the bottom line, we have a big one here in California. There was a negotiation. When Newsom stabbed us in the back and reneged on the agreement to phase out Diablo Canyon. There was a PG&E went to the state and they got a $1.4 billion loan, which was supposed to be paid back by the feds. But Trump is now reneging on about $500 million. And a lot of these guys who are supporting Diablo going ahead are really nervous that we're going to get stiffed for $500 million with the feds not paying back the state loan. I contend that the most important thing we can do now is to produce an omnibus document that shows how much more money nuclear power is costing than renewables. Pure and simple. And Linda, I know you must deal with that, and this is the bottom line here.
One of the most incredible statistics that I came across when I was writing the book was actually about the Hinkley nuclear power plant, which is two French EDF EPRs that are still under construction in the UK and have now that cost has boomed from an original $19 billion to probably $60 billion. And this is actually not only the most expensive power plant in the world, but the second most expensive building in the world after the Great Mosque of Mecca. I mean, which is a lot more expensive. So there's a big chasm between the 60 billion of Hinkley and the Great Mosque of Mecca. But nevertheless, that tells you how inflated this is. And the people there were told that they would be cooking their Christmas turkeys with the heat from this plant in 2017. It may arrive in 2030. So that gives you a sense, and this is not unique to Hinkley. This is the story that repeats itself everywhere. And as I think we should point out, this is not an unknown technology. We're dealing with an old, familiar technology which shows what we call negative learning. So unlike renewables that we get more familiar with, they get cheaper, they get faster to produce, nuclear gets slower and more expensive. That seems odd, doesn't it? Why would something we're so familiar with suddenly become more expensive to do and take even longer? And that's what we're going to be looking at.
Well, of course, that's what happens when you name a nuclear plant after the guy that shot Reagan. But you got Hinkley, you got the one in Finland, Oklahoma, you've got Flamanville, and of course you have Vogtle in Georgia, which came in well over double, 7 years late. I mean, come on, And then you got VC Summer in South Carolina, a $9 billion hole in the ground that'll never generate electricity. Although the idiots are talking about reviving it. So Arnie, how fatal do you think this problem is at Palisades with the steam generators? And Roger, how do you think the journalistic community in Michigan is going to react to this?
Yeah, Harvey, I have to go to a DFL meeting here in Minnesota, so I got to go right now. But I have never been more sure in my professional career that a tube is going to break in the first year at Palisades. I'd say 99% sure they're going to shut down from a tube break. Now, maybe it'll be a little leak and they'll have to shut down, or maybe it'll be a burst and they'll have to call the emergency plan into effect. But Nothing is 100%, but boy, I have never been more convinced that Palisades is going to blow a tube before the next refueling outage.
Well, you seem to be in agreement with Framatome, right?
They should pay me.
Maybe, maybe it's a first, but isn't Framatome now the chief engineer at Palisades? What's Framatome's standing at Palisades?
Yeah, they're providing the fuel, they're providing the ultrasonic testing, they're doing all the metallurgical analysis. But I
And
don't know.
they're on the public record. The company that built the reactors in France is on public record as saying that they think the plant it can't go more than X months. I've never that's a new one even on me, man.
Right.
Roger, what do you think?
I gotta go.
Take care. Have a good meeting.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you,
Arnie.
Wanda,
Great
for
to
coming.
see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, when this plant opens and then shuts down, the only question is how long it's going to be before it shuts down. But Linda's made the key point that that essentially it's a technology that has failed, and as a result of that, only government subsidy can possibly keep it going. And as we know, at the current time, the replacement energy that they're going to have to pay for is a doomsday scenario for this plant. So ironically, if they get it open for a little while, get the IPO go, and then sell their stock, they can cash out and then shut down the plant because it doesn't matter. Because if they go bankrupt, guess who's going to pick up the payments on the loan? The taxpayers. So it's a lose-lose situation, except that the IPO people from Holtec can sell their stock before the plant has to close. That's really, I think, the financial model here. And it says everything that you need to know. The fact that they're getting another $400 million to start building SMRs. And the entire state of Michigan, and we're talking about the entire legislature, both sides, and except for a few senators like Markey in Washington, everybody's on the wrong side. So why would that be? Well, it's obvious, as you pointed out again and again, the tremendous amount of money that's donated to their campaigns, directly and indirectly. They paid off both sides, literally. I mean, contributed legally to these campaigns, but that's one of the key sources. In my district, my local state assemblyman, who's not returning my phone calls, of course he's getting money from this. He lives in my neighborhood, and he voted for this thing, and for this reopening of Palisades. I mean, that's part of his campaign funding. So obviously, by buying, contributing to both sides, it's almost inevitable. Now, when the plant fails, then there's going to be a lot of excitement about it. But by that point, if Holtec is right, the IPO ship will have sailed, and then they can cash in, and
It's
then
unbelievable.
close the plant, and then let us repay the loan.
Yeah.
So you've got two, real quick, and let me get, and then Linda, you got two models here. You got San Onofre on the engineering
Right.
side, a total carbon copy,
Right.
and you've got Shoreham and what
Right.
happened in Long Island,
Exactly.
where they operated for a day.
And even better than that is the Fermi plant in Monroe, Michigan, which never really reopened. And then they spent 8.5 years before they told us the truth that they almost had a meltdown. So it's just all part of a scenario.
Unbelievable.
By that point, they'd already spent the money, so.
Linda Gunter?
Well, actually, what I was going to say is that in my book, in the false promise of nuclear power section, there's a chapter called "Crime Doesn't Pay and Nor Do Old Reactors," and the first sentence reads, "There are two things the continued use of nuclear power depends on: subsidies and, it would seem, crime." And I think, Roger, you just summed that up in everything you've just told us. And we've seen it over and over again. We saw it in Ohio, we saw it in Illinois, we saw it in South Carolina, where members of the state legislature and executives from the nuclear companies went to jail for crimes, high crimes and misdemeanors, criminal racketeering, conspiracy, bribery, the list goes on. And so it's clearly not possible to do this without those two components in place.
Well, I want to point out we have Dave Saltman on the line. Dave was in my dorm in Ann Arbor. Roger and I were on the Michigan Daily. The three of us were in Ann Arbor together on October 5th, 1966, when Fermi more or less blew up. And none of us knew about the damn thing until I found out about it in 1974 when I read We Almost Lost Detroit. And Dave, you are the media expert. We need you in 2 weeks to come back with us, and we need to work a media strategy because this stuff is it's beyond anything that you could make up. As as Yogi Berra would say, you can't make this stuff up. And do you want to record, say something to that, and then we're going to go back to. Does anybody else? We're down to 11 minutes. Dave Solomon, do you want to comment on this from a media point of view? And Ace, I don't know if you wanted to speak as well.
Hey, Roger, long time no
Hey,
see.
man. How are you?
Roger is my old roommate from Berkeley,
good,
California. Long time.
Long time.
Well, listen, I have to say, you guys are the world's foremost authorities on this subject. I grew up in a scientific family, but I know very little about this beyond what I've learned from you all, and it's devastating. It strikes me that, and Roger, you tell me if you agree. Roger, and I think you two guys are the guys to be writing the cover story in the Atlantic or something like that about.
Well, we've got Linda with us too in her book.
Yeah, her book. Yeah,
it's selling like hotcakes.
You guys tell me who should be doing it, but I'll do everything I can to help you. Get somewhere. Also, it strikes me, and tell me if you agree with this or not. There's got to be a class action suit in this somewhere. Exactly. And I think that fighting on the we talked about this just briefly a couple of weeks ago in the boardrooms of the corporations, buy 10 shares of stock in Holtec, go to the annual meeting and tear their heads off.
Yeah, well, I'm going to TNEC. I'll see you in New York in about 10 days, David, and we can go over to Camden and TNEC. Linda can come up and cover it, and we'll see if we can have a talk with Holtec. And
you're the only guy in the world that would be able to make me go to Camden.
Well, there you go. But like I said, the whole New Jersey Democratic Party just signed up for nuclear duty. It's unreal. I mean, terrifying. Mickey Leader, you had a hand. MYLA, Ace, I don't know if you want to jump in. It's 4:12. We're almost out of time. Mickey, can you do it in a minute here, and then MYLA?
Yeah, am I unmuted?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, hi, thank you. It's the same issue pertains to the one we discussed in the beginning that I never got to ask my questions. It has to do with get this information out. I am advocating my tuchus off for trying to get in New York State to get the Assembly and Senate to pass legislation so that we can have honesty in protecting voting. And it's everything from having the paper ballots and the pencils, and don't use any of those mashugana machines, and count all the ballots, and be able to have both the Democratic and Republican chair people be appealed to for recounts. It's crazy. There's about 6 different very good pieces of legislation. You can't get anybody in your Democratic Party, in your intelligentsia in all of Rockland and in New York State to pay attention to this shit. They have no clue. They are still in 1940, and nobody is talking about it. Now that both...
Now we are.
Yes, but you gotta get it out there. Nobody is in MSN, whatever, and CNN. They can't touch it because they're owned by the company
Well,
store.
one thing we got, and thank you for that, Mickey. And I do compliment you on managing to work the words tuchus and mashugana into the same commentary. It's terrific. But Dave Solomon is our media guru, and we and Roger and Linda and all the other writers, MYLA, we're gonna have to get this out there. There's no doubt about it. MYLA RESON and Linda Pence, we're gonna give you the last word because we're almost done. Go ahead.
I want to remind everybody, no swearing, please, because this is for the radio.
Oh
At
yeah,
any rate,
we will not meet next week. And also, MYLA has put together for Earth Day a special broadcast. Do you want to tell about it, MYLA?
sure. And I just want to say, well, in 1966 we almost lost Sonny, Salty, and Roger, and I'm so glad that that the three of you were spared, and the rest of Detroit as well. At any rate, and there was just a little extra bit of information about the similarities between San Onofre and Palisades, and that is that at San Onofre, the operator Edison wanted to have the license to run San Onofre at 70%. Right. Instead of 100%, and that was a stickler. And the NRC said, no, we only issue licenses to run at 100%, not at lower power. But at any rate, we put together an Earth Day special from our wonderful conversation that we had last week, and it's going to be running on Earth Day. And offered to over 200 Pacifica affiliate stations, and Roger, you were on that show, I believe, and it's offered to all of the 5 Pacifica sister stations. So we're really, I don't know, what people can do is they can contact their stations and find out when they will hear the California the Solartopia Earth Day special on their radio station. So call your radio station and ask when you can hear it on your radio station.
Thank you for that. It's Earth Day Solartopia, we're calling it. And Ace Hoffman, it's great to see you. If you want to say a quick word, then we're going to go to Linda Gunter. Congratulations. Go ahead, Ace.
Everyone's been really interesting, and I've enjoyed the discussions a lot. So I didn't really have anything to add.
Okay. Well, you helped with the shutdown at San Onofre, no doubt about it. And it's here we are. Linda Gunter, congratulations on your book. And there's the nuclear failures report, which gets longer every day. Linda, you offer a discount on your book. In my family growing up, there are only 2 sins, wasting food and paying retail. So you have actually offered people way. And John Brakey, thanks for coming in, man. Your stuff is great. And, I hope you don't wind up in jail with your sanctions.
I hope not either, but I just want I put the cartoon up that I'm getting ready to publish next week. And because I got a big article on this whole story that I was telling you. And this cartoon really kind of says it all,
Okay, great.
But anyway,
you'll be back in 2 weeks.
A great conversation about the nuclear, man.
Yeah, it's really something else. Dave Solomon, great to see you in 2 weeks. Ray Lutz, come back. Roger, of course, all this stuff is. If people in Michigan don't like to get ripped off for billions of dollars, if they look at the San Onofre and Shoreham stories, man, forewarned is forearmed. There's no excuse here. Linda Gunter, we've got 2 minutes. It's great. Your book is No, and you're just a great author. And take us out.
Well, I was thinking that I would finish off with since you were talking about this very subject, with a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, because he said this actually in 1965, but it seems so relevant to everything we've discussed the last hour. And he says, as our own species is in the process of proving, one cannot have superior science and inferior morals. The combination is unstable and self-destroying. And that's really exactly what we've been talking about, I think, this last hour. And what I try to convey in the book really is the morality side of this story, that, that we cannot just greedily chase after greater consumption while completely disregarding who it hurts. And it hurts people along the whole uranium chain.
And to wrap, I mean, the bottom line now is the bottom line. There is no economic case that can be made for nuclear power. And renewables have blasted so far ahead in every way, in terms of planet, in terms of safety, health, speed to build, jobs created, and cost. There's
Yes.
not a single old, big or new, smaller, large. There's not a nuclear plant on this planet that can compete with renewables.
And I think that's the point you made earlier, that they're sort of desperate to stay in there somehow and try and find a reason to continue to exist. And there just isn't one. And so now they're actually trying to say, well, we're needed for the nuclear weapons sector. Whereas before they really didn't want you to think about the bomb when we were talking about nuclear power, because you might realize that nuclear power is dangerous. But now they can't wait to tell you how the two things are married together. So it is definitely desperation, because they're getting beaten hand and fist by renewable energies.
Right. And remember what Putin's drones are doing to the atomic reactors in Ukraine. It's terrifying. Listen, everybody, we're at Free 420. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering my curse of MYLA RESON. Everybody at Tatanka Bricka, Ray Lutz, all you guys, thank you so much for coming on, Salty. And we will see you in 2 weeks. We'll not be next week, but we will in 2 weeks. And remember, the title of Arthur C. Clarke's book, his greatest book, was Childhood's End. And that's where we are. No nukes, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.